Welcome to the Central Pennsylvania Real Estate Investors Meetup podcast, keeping you up to date with what is happening in the York, Lancaster, and Harrisburg, Pennsylvania real estate markets.
Welcome to the Central Pennsylvania Real Estate Investors Meetup podcast. My name is Chad Eisenhart. Each week, I go to the local real estate meetups in York, Lancaster, and Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and rebroadcast the meetup in their entirety. Whether you're a new investor just looking to get started or on 100 doors, meetups are a great place to connect with other like-minded individuals, including buying and selling your deals, and staying up to date with what's new in your local market. I am a buy and hold investor focused on single-family, multifamily, and self-storage in York, Pennsylvania, and can be found at chadbuys.com. This week, I'm at the Landlord Investors Mastermind Group in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, hosted by Judah Hoover of Slate House Property Management. The speaker is Alan Swanson. Alan came from a corporate job with AMP and Tyco. In his 10 years since leaving the corporate world, he has taken his management background and applied it to real estate. Alan discusses how he bought 22 buy and hold properties in his first 23 months, how he flipped 33 houses in the last 6 years, how he rehabbed 160 houses as a general contractor for other investors, making $74,000 on his second flip, why he loves big houses, the form he uses to analyze deals, his thought process on when to accept an offer, analyzing daily holding costs, looking for a win-win for all involved, and working with private lenders. And now, on to this week's episode. Thank you.
One of the things that I do a poor job of at running this club is getting it started on time. And one of my biggest accountability partners with that is our speaker tonight. And so I am going to count it as a small victory that we are getting started at only 5 minutes after 7. So thank you and welcome, everybody. My name is Judah Hoover. This is the Landlords and Investors Mastermind Group. If you are here for the Amway convention, that is upstairs. And if you are here for the PTO meeting, that is down the hall. We are here to learn about, that was a test. The jokes don't get any better than that all night, folks, just so we're clear. This is essentially my way of giving back to the real estate investing community for all that the real estate investing community has done for me. I have spent about $30,000 to $40,000 on books, tapes, and seminars in education in the real estate investing world, and I did that back before people would let you write them a check for $30,000 all at one time. You know, I did it the hard way, $500 to $700 at a time. And we don't subscribe to any one particular guru's philosophy or anything like that. We talk about mobile homes. We talk about investing in notes on mobile homes. We talk about investing in mobile home parks and everything in between. We talk about buy, fix, and sell. We talk about holding long-term rentals and whatever it is that you're looking at. So just I'm kind of really excited about where this year has gone, and I was putting together where we're looking to go for 2020, and I thought, man, I should really just go back and review really quickly where we are and all the great speakers and I think high-level content that we were able to cover in 2019. We had Jonna Green, come in, she's my sister, and talk about, I still call her, she's been married for like 20 years, and I still call her Jonna Hoover. So we had Jonna Green come in and talk about financial planning. I think one of the very important things that you can do is before you start taking on debt and investing in real estate is get your personal house in order. You'll find your business partners and your spouses come alongside you a whole lot more when your personal financial house is in order. We had Anna Kelly, a dear friend of mine. I remember doing loans for Anna when she only had like 5 or 6 units, and now she has several hundred units. She is a woman who grew up in a childhood in rent-controlled Section 8 housing and was on welfare. His mother was on welfare and things like that, and wanted to do something different with her life. And she just has a phenomenal story. Jeff Paulus talked to us. He's a member here of this club. Talked to us about creative financing. I don't know if you guys were here for that, but doing subject to how you can take over perfectly good and acceptable mortgages that are already in place. 15, 20 years ago, it was a really hot thing to do. It's kind of fallen out of favor a little bit right now, and I think it's, well, I almost said I think it's a crying shame, but actually I love doing them, and so I don't think anybody in this room should do them. And if you come across any, just give me a call and we'll JV on it and go from there. We also had Frank Yang come in and talk about doing loans with private money lenders and how easy it is to find private money out there. There's a lot of differences between a private money lender and a hard money lender, and a private money lender is an individual that just wants to lend you money. They're not necessarily in the business of making loans on real estate the way that a hard money lender is, and there is a phenomenal amount of people out there who want to take some of their money and diversify it out of stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and 401ks and do something different with it. And Frank talked with us about that. Chad talked about, what did Chad talk about? Syndication. I was not here that night. I had a hot date, and so Chad was here flying solo all by himself. It's true, Beth. I'll tell you about it later. And syndications are something that I've done. I've syndicated everything from, racehorses to hard money loans to, a 342-unit deal in Tulsa, Oklahoma to single-family homes. I mean, just anything and everything can be syndicated. I think that they're a very hot, popular thing right now, but they have been around for a long time, and they're a great thing to know about. Michael Manthei, similar story to Anna Kelly. Michael runs the Investors Club in one of the two great Investors Clubs that are down in Lancaster, my home market. April Crossley, more private money. Becca Shea talked about marketing. David Krulak, our resident sage expert in real estate investing. David has a book with him tonight. Do you, I assume? Always? Okay, I just, you were giving me, David, I mean, you have this like deadpan look, and I can never read you, my friend. We've been friends for like 10 years, and I never know what you're thinking. I'm so glad I've never had to negotiate with you. So David wrote a book, How I Started With Nothing and Made $12 million. I always want to say six. $12 million in real estate part-time, and it's a great book. I think it's worth $2,500. If he was any other guru or mentor or whatever, he would easily be selling that book for $2,500, and he sells it for $39, $40. What are you selling it for? $40. $40, and he'll sign it for you. And it is, I really like it. I think I could talk for 5 minutes about that book, but Alan has a whole lot of great content that we want to get to that I'm not going to. Carl Diffendorfer talked about success, how you define success. Harry Nail was our speaker last month. How many were here last month to see Harry Nail speak? Great presentation on working with contractors, the 6 essential documents you need to work with contractors, how to use each one, why each one is important. And what I liked about that presentation was Harry gets into so much more, how to work with lenders, how to build a credibility kit, how to build rapport, the importance of networking. Harry runs the Investors Club down in York, and that is a great meeting to be at and check out too. So tonight's speaker is Alan Swanson. He'll be here in just a little bit. I'll bring him up here in just a little bit. December 19th is our Christmas party. Guys, you'll notice something about each and every one of those speakers. Do you notice that I didn't say anybody had any books, tapes, or seminars for sale, right? I do from time to time have a big national speaker come in with something to present and a special offer or a course that they're offering, but that's not what this club is. This club is not a pitch fest. This club is not a, hey, partner with me or partner with the sponsors or partner with the people who are up here speaking for our deals. We are interested in providing and developing content and information that is valuable and useful to you as the attendees of this club. And if you want to see anything different, all you have to do is let me know. I think that we delivered phenomenal, me and the people who helped put this club on, I think that we delivered phenomenal content in 2019. I am very much looking forward to the content that we are developing for 2020. So we are a free club, open to all. Bring your friends. Guys, this club does not grow if you don't tell your friends about it. One of the great things about it being a free club is it's a free club. One of the bad things about it being a free club is there is zero advertising budget. So I'm willing to chip in, and I pay for the room and I pay for the Meetup website and all that other stuff like that. But what I count on you guys doing is if you are, hi Stuart, how are you? Jeannie didn't let you out of the house earlier? Now listen, this looks really bad, okay? Like, no one gives me a harder time than Stuart in this room. And I had an opportunity. We've got some visitors here. Will you just raise your hand if you've been here for a long time and know that no one rips me harder than Stuart? Please? All right, thank you. Oh, man. It's been a long time since I've been nervous standing in front of a room, Stuart. Congratulations. So, guys, we usually run until about 9 o'clock, but please feel free to come and go as you like. This isn't, we don't keep attendance or anything like that. Bathrooms are down the hall. So last night I was at you guys know how I always, say that everyone's phone is on vibrate anymore, and a speaker shouldn't have to remind people to turn their phone off or put it on vibrate. Just last night, my 11-year-old was at his viola concert, whatever, with 60 other little violas and violins and cellos, and just before everything got started, there was, some phone rang, and it's, they already had It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year programmed in. Before Thanksgiving, programmed in, and I was like, oh, man. So if you have a phone that is going to play Christmas music for us here tonight, before Thanksgiving, not only would it be blasphemous to do such a thing, but it would also be, it would hurt our speakers' feelings. So, and then after Thanksgiving, you can get that. Thank you guys for registering. Listen, here's the deal. I make only one request each and every month. This club is for free. This club is here to provide knowledge and information, and I hope that you get something out of it. I am going to do the best I can to provide you with knowledge and information. Please don't sue me, okay? I'm not a CPA. I'm not a financial planner. I'm not an attorney. I am a PA licensed real estate professional, and because I have that license, I need to tell you that. And actually, because I have that license, I feel like I'm more of a liability target. But please, 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 do not sue me. Here's who I am. We've kind of been through all that. John Throne is here. Is one of our great providers. Thank you very much, John, for being with us. John is a great guy to talk to if you have any needs for commercial money lending or things like that. Bruce Barlar is here in the room. Bruce, raise your hand. Bruce was my business partner for a long, long time in the mortgage business, and he is an awesome go-to source for any residential loans or anything like that that you might have. I already talked about David Krulak. Beth Yoder is a phenomenal real estate agent, and I believe that is about it for... Where's my Miracle Method guy? What's that? He's behind the pole. Right, exactly. Guys, if you're ever in a bathroom that, not just a tub that, it was a claw tub that needs a porcelain overfinish or anything like that, but if you ever walk into a rehab and you're like, oh my goodness, this is pink subway tiles, if I rip all these out and then scrape it and paint it and everything like that, it's going to look awful. Miracle Method has a great way to actually coat all that. It's a triple bonded, patented system that's gluten-free and wonderful, and you should talk to them about it. So it is gluten-free, Beth. I think, pretty sure. I can't imagine that there's gluten in it. So, and we're also recording tonight because we are on the podcast, Central PA Real Estate Investors Meetup, and it is right now on Apple, and we are trying to get it on the other podcast carriers. So the Harrisburg meeting, the York meeting, the Lancaster meeting, I think the Lebanon meeting, a couple of these Central PA ones are going to be on a podcast so that you can listen to the ones that you couldn't get to. Can't do anything for the networking or anything like that, but we can at least help deliver some content if you weren't able to be here. 2020, mark this down on your calendars. We are going to have on April 3rd through the 5th at the Lancaster Convention Center, Real Estate Hackers Conference is the website. Real Estate Hackers Conference, you can go and see who some of the speakers are. We're going to have a ton of great vendors there. And that is going to be an awesome conference to be at. Lancaster right now kind of has the same vibe downtown that Harrisburg did almost 7 to 10 years ago. There's a lot of really great eateries. Not that there aren't still great eateries in downtown Harrisburg. I love downtown Harrisburg. But there's going to be some really great, not just what we have on the schedule, but also great breakout sessions, after-hour sessions, and things like that. We're going to be taking full utilization of being in the convention center in downtown Lancaster. I think that this will be a can't-miss event, and I highly recommend you check it out. All right, guys, for 2020, what do you want to hear? What's missing from most real estate courses and information products that you're getting? What questions do you have? Am I doing anything that you hate? Seriously, let me know. What forms do you need? And do me a favor, the only way we grow is by inviting people. Send that information to judah@slatehousegroup.com. I have 25 eligible speakers for 11 slots for next year. I'm probably going to double some of them up, but I'm going to prioritize based on what I get back from you guys and go from there. LIMG Resources Accurate Rent is a great way to find accurate rentals. Guys, I've helped 58 people so far this year who have reached out to me and said, hey, Judah, I need a buyer for my deal. Judah, I need a seller for my deal. Judah, I need a hard money loan. Judah, help me out here. And that's not just people who called me and said, hey, Judah, I need a lease, and I sent them a lease. Or, hey, Judah, is there any difference between service dogs and emotional support pets? And I say, yes, there is, and this is what it is, and whatever else. Like I'm talking about, I credit my number with, I've helped 58 deals get done that wouldn't have otherwise gotten done so far this year. I don't say that to brag. I do not say that to brag. My grandmother said self-praise stinks. I can whip out my born in Lancaster County Mennonite card, won't brag on myself if you want to. I only say that so that you believe me when I say I really am just trying to help as many people as possible. And if there's ever anything I can do for you, all you got to do is let me know. Landlords and Investors Mastermind Group, we're on Facebook, YouTube channel. I don't know. I kind of like those numbers. 135 subscribers, 4,600 views. My son watches these YouTube channels, Preston and Preston Plays and all these different things. And, they get like millions of views on every one of theirs. And like occasionally like 100 people watch a video that I put up. So, Anyway, all I try to do there is put out some good content and just trying to come up with some other ways of doing things that we can't do here. Mostly it is me walking a property and saying, I would replace this countertop, I wouldn't replace this countertop. When I talk about a hot water heater that's electric, this is how you can tell it's an electric hot water heater, or this is how you can tell it's a gas hot water heater. Just those kind of things are the videos that I put together and walk properties and come up with numbers. So that's what we do. So as my voice is failing, which I guess is providential as a way of getting me off the stage, I'm going to try and quickly introduce our speaker here tonight. And you will see me taking notes. If you see me typing on my phone, that's what I'm doing because this guy has a wealth of knowledge and information. And have you guys ever heard the expression, you can't see the forest but for the trees. You know what I mean? You like, sometimes you're so close up against something, it's impossible to get a read on what's going on. Listen, I love you guys. I really do. It's the reason I put together this club and why I organize it. But I get a lot of flack and a lot of criticism. Everyone comes up to me afterwards and they tell me, Judy, you need to have, bigger speakers, or Judy, you need to have more local speakers, or Judy, you need to have more time for questions, or Judy, we need to have less time for questions. You know what I mean? Like, this is what, and people don't just like share their viewpoint with me to be helpful. Like, they are passionate and offended that there's not more time for questions at the end. So for me, the only way I can break through that noise is to have some people who I trust their feedback and I can be vulnerable to. And so this isn't just a gentleman who I'm having come up here and speak, who is somebody who I value their opinion when it comes to real estate matters. When it comes to running this club and what's best for this club, I consider him like a captain running this with me. And I always value his input and everything that he has. And once he gets into his story, you will find out a little bit more about why and what that is. Yeah, there's definitely seats right up here, and there's seats all up front if you want to come on down. So, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, give a big round of applause for my friend Alan Swanson. I'm going to put this on you right here.
He's got to put the leash on me before we can start.
Right, and then you can just chuck that in a pocket.
Chuck that in the pocket. Where's my
And then
clicker?
you worked for AMP for a number of years. You know how to work electronic devices.
Do you have me set up?
What'd you do?
I don't know. You tell me.
There you go. You push
Which button do I push?
forward. There you go.
Oh, here we are. Okay.
You push that button if they're not paying attention to you.
Oh,
You push that button and it goes off.
Gotcha.
If you
Okay.
think they're looking at the screen instead of looking at you.
Okay. First of all, Judah, thank you very much for entrusting me with the next hour and whatever in front of your club. He doesn't do that for very many people, so I feel honored to be here, and I will try my best to make sure that you get something out of this before you leave. Does everybody have a handout? There are some up here that are available if somebody needs them. So what's in this is virtually every slide. I did add a couple after I had this thing put together, and there are two full-page slides at the end that are going to cover two of the more important types of tools I'm going to talk about tonight. So let's get started. So who am I? There's my name, my cell phone. I no longer have a fax, but I'm too lazy to take it off my business card. You've got my email address, and you've got the 3 LLCs that I work with. If anybody wants anything that you see, in any of the forms I have that are active, after you see them tonight, you want to get a copy of them, send me an email. Don't text me, don't do anything else. It has to be an email, only because a text and something else, I can't send something back to you that I want to send back in terms of an attachment. All right? I can't do it. Maybe you can do it, but I can't. So send me an email, and I'll make sure you get the information that you want, okay? I have a rule that says if you don't see me write it down, the conversation never took place. So an email is the best way to get a hold of me. I've been married for 46 years. I have 2 married sons. I have no grandkids. I thought maybe we should send them a how-to video, but I was told that may not be a good idea. Jude always kids me about having an engineering background. I am a Penn State industrial engineer. I was a registered engineer in the state of Pennsylvania for quite a long time. I didn't use it for a long time. So I got tired of paying $200 every couple of years to the state, so I put it on inactive list. I was in manufacturing operations leadership for 35 years. I worked for 30 years for a company called AMP Incorporated, which became Tyco Electronics, which is now TE Connectivity. While I was there, I led organizations from 13 people in a garage in Waterbury, Connecticut, with a budget of $2 million, to an organization that ran from Markham, Ontario, Canada, to Buenos Aires, Buenos Aires, Argentina. They had 11,000 people in it, had $750 million for an annual budget. So that's kind of the scope of my background and experience from a manufacturing standpoint. I led organizations in North and South America, Europe, and Asia. We relocated 8 times during my career. I put 3 different countries, United States, Malaysia, And I worked in Mexico, but we lived in El Paso, but I consider that a foreign country in a lot of ways, because I had to drive across that stupid border every day for a year and a half, so I give myself credit for that. I've been a full-time real estate investor for 10 years. 10 years ago, the corporate world said they'd had enough of me and said, go find something else to do. I got home and found out that the home I lived in was not mine because my wife was still there and she wasn't used to having me around. So she said, you better find something else to do. Having moved as many times as we did, I kind of had a passion for real estate and decided maybe this is what I wanted to do, because I found that I could take everything I learned in manufacturing operations and management and apply it to my real estate business. So in the first 23 months I was in this, I bought 22 buy and hold properties, rehabbed them, refinanced them, rented them in 23 months. After I was done with that, I've been flipping houses. I flipped 33 houses in the last 6 years, and I'm going to talk about one of those flips in a couple minutes. I've rehabbed over 160 houses by being a general contractor for other investors who wanted some help with some of the work that they were doing. And here's some of the flips I've done. You're going to hear this a lot, I like big houses. Big houses have a lot more cost associated with them. Big houses have a lot less competition because there's not that many people that can get the funding that you need to rehab, to buy and rehab, and hold them for as long as you have to hold them. But I've done houses from York County to Lebanon County, north and south in that area, and I just flipped one in Maryland. I just sold it 2 weeks ago. So anything that's flippable, can make some money, I'm willing to take a look at it. The last time I spoke here, about a year and a half ago, I talked about the real estate investment process that I put together as part of my 10 years adventures into this business so far. And I'm not going to go through all that tonight, but I am going to take a couple of the tools that I talked about before and talk about them tonight. The other thing about me from a personal standpoint is I love to travel. When you live overseas, that kind of just is a bug that gets into you. And I've always had a lifelong dream to go to New Zealand, and we were there last year. And on the South Island, New Zealand, Mount Cook, which is the center mountain there, is the most important and most popular place in New Zealand. So we took that picture, and picture my wife and I to Franz Josef Glacier, which is on the west coast of the South Island of New Zealand. So anyway, enough about that. But what I really like is a big fat check. The second house I flipped, Beth Yoder is my realtor in that house, who's sitting right there. It's in Dover, Pennsylvania. Bought the house, rehabbed it, had it on the market. 24 hours after it was on the market, was under contract to sell, had a home inspection, had a huge mold problem. I could write a book about what we went through with the mold on that house. But when it was all said and done, I got a check for $74,000. Now, when that happens on your second flip, you get addicted really quick. And you think, boy, if I could do it on my second one, I ought to be able to do this again and again and again and again. Well, you're going to find out it takes a while in order for that to happen again. Those are not normal. That's not a normal check. I got so excited when I got that check, even though I know it was coming, and even though I had my hands on it, I quick ran to the bank and put it in the bank before I took a picture of it. So I never had a picture of the check, but that's a picture of the stub that went with the check. What I really like is doing it a second time. It took me 6 years, but in April of this year, I got a check for $77,118.17 for flipping a property. 62 Boxwood Drive in Hershey. And I did remember to take a picture of the check this time. And what I'm going to do is show you the process I went through in buying, rehabbing, and then selling that property. Beth Yoder was also the realtor with that one. So here's a property. 62 Boxwood Drive, it's in Hershey. You can see this was just before it went on the market after we'd finished all the rehab with the house. And this is what it looked like the first time I saw a picture of it. So you look at it and you say, well, how did you find the house? I didn't find the house. Somebody else did. Chad Nagle found the house, who's sitting in the back. Fortunately for me, I was on Chad's wholesaler list. I'd met Chad a few years before that. We became very good friends. I've bought a house from him before this one. I was on his mailing list. For some reason or other, I was on my computer when that mailer hit my inbox. I immediately opened it up. 5 bedrooms, 3 baths, 3,100 square feet. What did I say earlier? I love big houses, right? This is a big house, and it's in a great neighborhood. And I thought, this house has a lot of potential. It has an after repair value of $395,000. The biggest house, most expensive house I'd flipped at that point was $349,000. So I thought, wow, this one's got a lot of potential with it. So here's a hint. If you meet a wholesaler, make sure you're on their list. It's a great way to get property. So how many wholesalers are in the room? Raise your hands. 1, 2, 3. There's 3. I'm on 2 of your list. I'm not on your list. So please put me on your list, my list. You're on your list. You've got all my contact information. Meet me afterwards so that we can talk. I'll buy you lunch sometime so I can tell you exactly what it is I want. And then maybe we can do business, okay? But you should be on every wholesaler's list. That way you have a source of properties coming into that you're not going to ever find. The wholesaler finds properties that nobody else can find, and therefore it's another source to find properties for yourself. So what was it about this property that triggered me? Number one, it's got an ARV of $395,000, and there's a question mark beside that, which I'll explain in a couple minutes. It's in Hershey. Hershey is the best place for property sales in this entire area, by far. Has a small rehab, according to how Chad explained it. And I have a question mark beside that, which I'll explain in a couple minutes. Beds and bathrooms, 5 and 3, big house. It's a big house. I already told you there's a lot less competition when you're trying to buy and rehab a house that's that big. It has a potential big payoff, and the timing was I had just finished the flip. I was ready to buy the next one. So this was perfect for me in every way you could think of. So what's the first thing you do? And this is in the full page in the back of your handout. The deal analyzer form. So what does it do for you? This particular form calculates MAL, your maximum allowable offer. It calculates, if you're a buy and hold investor, it calculates your cash flow. If you're a wholesaler, it calculates how much cash you can get out of your deal. If you're a flipper, it calculates, it's not net profit, it calculates your gross profit on one sheet of paper. I got this form, I paid $2,000 to get this form, and here's what happened. I bought a buy and hold property in Baltimore. The lady who wholesaled the property to me had a 3-tab form, and the tab that was open was for the rehab. So she told me what the rehab was and what the different things that I should do to the property, and that was there. So I bought the house. After I was going through all my emails, I came back to the one that had this form on it for the rehab, and I saw the other tabs at the bottom, so I pushed the one for this sheet. And it came up, and I looked at it for quite a while, and I said, this thing's got a lot of potential. So I spent an entire week learning how this form works, all the intricacies that are there, and this thing has been the only tool, the first tool I use for every deal I've looked at ever since, whether there's something I want to buy, something I'm just doing some strategic thinking about or whatever. But this form is incredible. So anyway, that's that. So what are the inputs to the form? And I'm going to spend a lot of time on this so you can understand what's here. Your main inputs are your ARV, your after repair value, your rehab cost, your purchase price, and your lending cost. If you're a buy and hold investor, you have to add your rent, your mortgage, your interest rate, your terms of the mortgage, your insurance, and your taxes. Then you'll get your cash flow. If it's a flip, you need ARV, rehab costs, purchase price, lending costs, number of days that you're going to hold your loan. I always plan for 6 months. That's the time it normally takes me to flip a property. Your interest rate, and if there's a wholesale fee, put that on there. If there's a lender fee, you can put it in for the wholesale fee. Either way, but you got some kind of fees you're going to pay. And if you're wholesaler, you need your ARV, your rehab cost, your selling price, your purchase price. Those numbers will spit out a number for you at the end. And so the first thing you want to do is analyze your deal, and you do it quickly. I can analyze a deal in 1 minute using this form, but I've done it about 6,000 times. before I walk through any property with any realtor, I will have already put the numbers into this form. I've already done my homework, and when I'm walking through the property, I have this form with me. And the first question I ask my realtor is, what's the ARV on the property? I can get a guess, but I don't know for sure. I'm always hoping that they know or they'll get me the information. And the second thing you're trying to do is make sure you know what your rehab cost is going to be. But anyway, I always have this form with me. So does a deal make sense? Use the information that you already have, the tools you already have. So I put Chad's numbers from the letter he sent out into this form and spit out a $31,400 profit. So I got a check for $77,000. This doesn't seem like it quite matches. My average flip check at settlement's $21,500. So if I get an opportunity to make $31,000 on a deal, that's 50% more than my average. So this thing caught my attention really quick. I liked it when I saw the pictures and I saw the write-up. I really liked it when I saw the potential profit. So what I do, I contacted Chad, said I was going to show up at the inspection he was having because I wanted to validate my numbers. You never buy an asset without walking a property. It would be stupid to do that. I hate to be that blunt, but you never buy a house without walking through it and understanding what's there. So I walked the property to gather information. I determined how I would rehab the property. Chad had given us a whole range of possibilities of what you can do with this property. So once you walk through it, you figure out, well, how are you going to rehab it? I talked to the owners who were there. I've never been to a house inspection like this where the owners were there. They answered every question you could ask them. So it was a great source of information to have that kind of feedback. The property was only 10 minutes from the Hershey Medical Center. So if it's at the Hershey Medical Center, that opens up a whole range of possibilities of people, medical professionals coming in from out of state, out of country to live in Hershey. So it was a great location. It had a lot of possibilities for a flip. A beautiful neighborhood, wooded neighborhood, and it was just everything you'd want. I tried to verify the ARV and the rehab costs, and I fell in love with the property, which is, from an investor standpoint, the absolute wrong thing to do, because as soon as you fall in love with something, you pay too much and you underestimate your rehab cost. So you don't want to do that, but I fell in love with this house and I wanted to buy it pretty badly. So what did I do next? This page is also in the back of your handout. I came home and I put everything into my rehab analysis form. So having done that, and here's what the rehab form does. It goes through the exterior, interior general, your kitchen, your bathroom, electric, HVAC, plumbing, and then miscellaneous type of work. And for specialties, you can roofing, landscaping, windows, flooring, granite, HVAC, general contractor, plumbing, electrical. All that information is available on that form. Now the costs keep changing. Material costs this year have gone up about 15%, I think, so far. So I've been having a little bit of trouble keeping up with all the different changes in material costs. But for the most part, the numbers on that form are pretty close to being accurate. And I use that form all the time as well. And that's a conglomerate of probably 6 to 8 different rehab analysis forms I have in my house already that I've gotten from other people. So I did the walkthrough of the property. I came home and said, all right, this is how I'm going to rehab the property. So my rehab cost came out at estimate $46,111. So next you have to calculate the ARV. And here's the importance of having a realtor like Beth Yoder. Beth Yoder was on Chad's email list. I got the email like at 9:15 in the morning. At 9:30 in the morning, I had an email from Beth. Alan, check out this property. She got the same email I got. She recognized the value and the location of the property. She also knows I like big houses. So she proactively sent me this, plus a list of all the comps. So I have all this information, so now I know the ARV is actually $395. Chad had a range of $375 to $395. I know it's $395. If you don't do the analysis of your deal and you don't do it quickly, somebody else is going to do it and beat you to the punch. And yes, I took that picture in the Tarangire National Park in Tanzania. And we were 20 feet away from that leopard. when I took that picture. It was spectacular. So what did I do? I updated my deal analyzer tool. Now I know the ARV is 395, the rehab is 46. The form calculates Mayo of maximum allowable offer, $230,000. I thought, I'm going to offer 240. Chad was looking for 260. If I use these numbers, I get a potential profit of $56,000. I could live with that, all right? So what I had to figure out is, am I going to be able to buy the property for 240 when Chad needs 260? He's a wholesaler, he's working with owners, so I didn't know how much flexibility he was going to have on getting the number I wanted to buy it for. So here's how the things looked. When I first saw Chad's information, I used the middle range for the ARV. Oh, I was going to go back and explain why I had a question mark beside the ARV and the rehab cost. A wholesaler is a marketer, and what do marketers do? They want to give you the most optimistic upside and the most conservative low side to give you a bigger spread. The bigger the spread, the more interested people are going to be about buying a house. So if I was a wholesaler, I'd do the exact same thing. So I used the midpoint of Chad's ARV. I used what I anticipated to be his rehab cost. The Mayo's calculated, he wanted 260. That gave me the 31,466. Now my numbers say I have a potential of $56,000. The only two things that are different are the ARV, three things. The rehab, and then my desire to buy it for 240 rather than 260. So I ended up winning the opportunity to buy this house. I don't necessarily have it under contract and agreement yet, but Chad says, you're the guy that's going to be able to buy this house. So what do you have to do? And it was a purchase price of $240. And by the time Chad and I agreed on the price, I had already talked to my contractor and my realtor, and I knew that my rehab cost was going to go from $46,000 to $54,000. So now what do? You got a property that's not quite under contract, but it's close enough that you can start the next process. You got to talk to your financing people, your title company, your rehab. You get your rehab insurance, line up your contractors, complete your scope of work, contact all the utilities, and all the other work that goes with getting a house under contract. It's amazing how you hit one plateau, and then all of a sudden you have a whole avalanche of additional work you have to do in order to make a deal happen. So, you need insurance. Steve Swineford, who's my insurance agent, isn't here tonight. I was going to give him this big plug, and he's not here to hear it. But I've worked with Steve for 6 years. I've been in the business for 10. Steve's the 6th insurance person I've worked with. He's by far the best I've ever seen. He handles my buy and hold properties, plus he does all my flips. So if you haven't met him, you should. The guy is really, really good. So, having been in this business now for 5 or 6 years and having made literally hundreds of offers and needing to get insurance on about 60 houses at this point, I created a form letter to send to my insurance agent. And the form letter starts out with, "Dear Steve, or hi Steve, I'm buying this property. Here's a link to it." I send him the most favorable link for the property so that it makes me look good, makes the property look good. Then I give him all the specifics, and here's the specifics. It's got the property address, a link to the property, the total amount of your loan, because he needs to know how much insurance he's got to have. The entity buying the property, which is always B&A Partners for me. The specifics of the property, the type of structure, the year it was built, heating, cooling, electrical service, water and sewer service, as a public as a private. What am I doing with the property? How extensive is a rehab? Who are my lenders? Who's a title company? And who's a realtor? Because all that information he needs to know in order to get his quote for insurance. So within 2 or 3 days, he comes back to me with a quote because he got all the information he needs from me. He reads one email, and that's all he needs. We don't have back and forth conversation all the time. Now, it took me about a year until I finally figured out exactly what he needed so I could give it to him on the front end. But it makes everybody's life a lot easier. I do it once, he does it once, and I move on to the next thing. So after that, you need to send a letter to your lender. All right, so when I send a letter to a lender, this is another form letter that I use. I obviously took out all the important parts in there, like who the lender is. And this is not the letter I sent for 62 Boxwood Drive. This is actually another property, but it links back to 62 Boxwood, which I'll explain in a minute. So I tell them the address of the property and a description. I send them a link. I describe a history of the property as best as I know it. What do I know about the property's history? What kind of issues has it had? How many owners has it had? If I got that kind of information. But basically, I just want to paint a picture of this property so my lenders understand the potential risks they have with lending me money to buy and rehab that property.
This isn't Fulton Bank or...
Oh, these are all private lenders.
Right.
These are private lenders. If you're going to do it with a bank, you probably have to do even more than this.
Right, sure.
Yeah. So then I tell them, here's the numbers for the deal. The purchase price for this particular property was $200. The short seller's fee was $4,000. Rehab cost is $60. Closing costs, total loan, what the after repair value is, so they know the loan to value. And then at the end, this is very important. Is this a property you're interested in funding? Oh, by the way, I'm selling 62 Boxwood Drive, which you just is under contract. It's going to close in a couple of days. You're going to get that check on this day. I'm looking for this money 2 weeks later. If you have a private lender and that private lender's got money to lend to you, you want to keep that money working for you. All right, it's working for them, but you want to be access to that money. So as soon as a lender gets their money back from a job that you've done and you flipped it, you want to get that money back as quickly as you can, because if you don't, somebody else does. And so if all their money is being lent to somebody else and you don't have it, you're out one of your sources of finance. And there aren't that many people out there who are willing to finance these big houses. So you got to keep it working. So I'm always thinking, if I'm about halfway to 2/3 of the way through a rehab on a flip, I'm looking for my next property, and I'm looking for it pretty quickly, because by the time you get your property, your offer accepted, and you're able to buy it, you're 2 months out. So you've got to constantly be thinking about how this is going to happen, how you're turning over the lender's money, and how you're putting it back to work, because they don't hold on to it. If you're not borrowing it from them, somebody else is. So that's the lender I said to my lender. If you have any questions, just spit them out as I'm going along. Okay. You have to, after you've got the funding, you've got the closing, I send a letter to my title company, the same type of thing. It's a form that I created to send to the title company. So I don't have to think. I just plug this stuff in and away it goes. And this goes to the title company, tells them how much title insurance I need. It's a normal rehab. I tell them how much money I'm going to need on the front end for my contractors. That's been agreed to by my lenders. Tells them how much funding I need at closing versus the total amount of money that's going to be on the loan, so they know how to write the mortgage up. There's a personal guarantee by myself. What the interest rate is as simple as a compounder. Do I have to pay interest each month? There's no interest till the end of the loan. All this stuff is spelled out on this form. And again, it's just plug and chug. The blanks are all empty. I just put in the information. It takes me about 2 minutes to fill this form out. So what I'm trying to do is take all the manual work out of the process of buying a house. So I can just 2 or 3 minutes. It takes me maybe half an hour to do all of this work, where it used to take me 2 or 3 days to do it by the time I got everything put together. So the bottom line about the property, I paid $240,000 for it, and this is where rehab becomes interesting. My rehab costs went from $46,000 to $86,000. The after repair value went from $395,000 to $449,000. And here's all the stuff we did to the house after I'd already purchased it and already had an agreement with my lenders to how much money I was going to spend on my rehab. So needless to say, you have to have some creative ways of figuring out how you're going to get the extra funding to do the extra work. And so here's how that process worked. How did I get the additional rehab funds? First, for the first tranche I needed, I went to my lenders and I said, look, the value of this property has gone up by $20,000. The value of the rehab has gone up by $15,000. Are you willing to fund that? And the loan to value is going to be exactly the same, and here's the proof I have of what the new ARV is going to be versus the rehab, so that they had no problem agreeing to the additional $15,000 for the loan. I go to my attorney, he writes up all new, well, he modifies existing information, I cite it all, give it to my lender, and everybody's happy, and away we go. Then I borrowed the other $25,000 from myself to complete the rehab, because I didn't feel comfortable going back a second time to my lender to say, hey, you know, I screwed up, or I actually need some more for the rehab on this property. But every time we increased the rehab, we increased the ARV. So here's what happened. It went from $46,000 rehab to $395 after repair value to $54,000 and $419,000 after repair value. Now, every time I decided to increase the cost of the rehab, I called Beth and I said, Beth, here's what we're going to do. Can you provide information to say that the ARV is going to support this additional rehab with that property? And every time she was able to find properties, I said, yes, if you invest that much more in this kind of finish, in that neighborhood, in that area, in that town, yes, you can do that. So it went from 54 to 76. Same process. We did the exact same thing.
So it sounds like you had scope creep going through this. I mean, what made you go ahead and keep going up to more, because you had a scope of work, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like you changed as you were going through it.
So here's what happened. The question was, how did you had rehab scope creep in this process, meaning it kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Because it was located next to, or 10 minutes from the med center, I always wanted to put in a second master bedroom suite. That was part of my original thought process. My contractor convinced me that wasn't a good idea because of a lot of extra cost it's going to cost for the plumbing to get it up to where this was, because it was an area above a new garage that they had put on the house, and there was no plumbing anywhere close to that. So he convinced me that the extra cost for the plumbing was going to offset any potential gain I would have in the ARV afterwards. Well, after we started the rehab, Beth and I were talking, and I kept saying, you know, I really would like to do that. And she 100% agreed and said, you've got all these potential buyers who are going to be out of country or out of state for sure. 2 master bedroom suites would be perfect for somebody coming to stay for a month or 2. So why not do it? So I was finally able to convince my contractor, this is what I want to do, give me a price that I could live with, which he did. And then eventually it went from $76,000 to $86,000. So I always verified that the after repair value would support that rehab cost increase. That rarely happens. Most of the time you put more money into rehab and you're screwed. All you're doing is dropping your potential profit. But not in this one. This is a different animal.
Now,
yes?
Can you explain why you use a private loan lender?
Why I did what?
Why you prefer to use private lenders?
Because I can't get a bank to lend me the money, number one. And number two, my wife won't let me use my own. Because to be very honest with you, in the other investments I have, I earn more than what I'm paying my lenders. So for me, it would be taking a cut rather than, being worthwhile. So you weigh both, but my wife and I, when we got into this, my wife and I agreed on, here's a fund of money you can, quote, play with in your new business. But you can't go beyond that. So that's kind of what we did. So you have, you kind of mitigate your risk by having funds in different buckets. But I would much rather pay a lender an interest rate than to borrow the money for myself. Dave Krulak would do just the opposite. He would never borrow money from a lender if he can do it himself. We have two different philosophies in how we attack that, okay? And what you have to do is figure out what process works for you and what assets you have available to you. But that's a great question. Okay? We put the house on the market. We got an offer, a full price offer with 3% seller help in 48 hours. I put all the numbers into my deal analyzer tool. It spit out I could probably get $63,000 with the guy's offer, so I accepted it. I closed and got a big fat check. So the first thing that's running through your mind is you just gave away $13,500 with that 3%. Why not hold on to the property a little bit longer, keep it on the market, and maybe mitigate that 3% and add that to your own check? Keep in mind my lending costs. I'm paying $87 a day for interest on my loan. I'm also paying all the holding costs for this property, and we rehabbed this in the middle of the winter. So it's the worst time to do a rehab from a heating standpoint and a lot of other things. So my costs are about $100 a day on this property. So I've got to weigh in my mind, do I want to take a chance of not accepting this guy's offer, try to negotiate a less than 3% deal on this, maybe get him down to 2 or 1, or not accept the offer at all and hope I get another offer in the next couple days. Well, every day, if I wait a month, if every day I wait, let's say you waited 2 weeks, that's going to cost me $1,600 just in that 2 weeks, plus it adds at least 2 more weeks to the end until you get to settlement. So that's at least $3,200. I didn't want to risk it. I was already getting a big check. I was happy. So I said, so we accepted the offer, we got the closing, and everything worked exactly as I had to, wanted to. So just before you go to closing, you have to send a letter to your lender to say, I'm getting ready to pay off the loan. Here's what the numbers look like for that loan. And this is the exact lender I sent to my lenders. Here's the calculations. The original loan amount was $301,000. Why do I like big houses? I have access to that kind of money. Most people don't. All right, so that helps me in big houses. Here's the date of the loan, here's the interest rate, here's the interest per day, total number of days, here's my interest rate. I modified the loan, took another $15,000, there's a calculation. Bottom line is that lender was getting a check for $331,716. They don't want to sit on that money. So I had 201 Seneca Way, I was buying a week after this one closed, and they funded that property with this money. So it works out, they were happy, I was delighted. When you have a good deal, everybody wins. The previous owners sold their house for what for them was an acceptable price of $221,000. They had already bought another house. They were sitting on 2 houses. They didn't want this house anymore. They just wanted to get rid of it. So Chad was able to get them to agree to a $221,000 sales price. The wholesaler got $19,000. Other than one other property, that is 4 times more than I've ever paid a wholesaler for a house. So, you're thinking about all the costs you have associated with that. $19,000 for a wholesale fee, to me, was sky high. But the property was worth it. My lender got $15,700 in interest. Yes, Leonard.
But if the wholesale fee justifies, like, if you get your number on your fix, so you never got a higher sale like that, so that you're saying that you wouldn't pay a wholesaler?
I pay the wholesaler whatever the property will support.
Right.
Yeah, I don't have a problem. I didn't have a problem paying that. As a matter of fact, I was delighted to pay it because I was delighted to have the house.
That was my question. Like, sometimes you got one guy, would say, I'm not paying you that type of money for a wholesale deal. You got people like that.
And some people aren't. Some people don't think through the business part of the process. Both people have to win. If you don't, that'll be the only house you ever buy from that wholesaler. Right? So the wholesaler got that. The realtor split $22,475. My contractor split $86,000 with their vendors. The buyer got $13,500 towards his closing costs. The neighborhood got a much improved property and higher property values. I netted $63,000. Of that $77,000, I netted $63,000 from that property. And I had a hunch when I bought it, that's about where this was going to be, because my initial, or my second go-around when I did my analysis on this property said that's what was going to happen. What do? You celebrate and you do it again. So I have other things I'm going to talk about. Are there any questions in the processes I went through, the things I shared at this point? Yes, Dave.
When you were getting the hard money, they did write out a note and it was recorded against the property, right? So that's part of
Yeah, so the question is, when I got the loan from my lenders, was that a recorded against the property? Yes, it was. The insurance is in the lender's name. It's not in my name. I sign a personal guarantee for every loan I take like that. It's kind of a requirement to do that. And it was recorded, yes. So when the loan gets paid off, then there has to be a SAT piece created to take that off against that property. Yep. Okay. Any other questions anybody has? Yeah.
How do you calculate the loan to value?
Loan to value is how much is the total amount of money you're going to borrow against what's the after repair value of the house.
And that was 78%.
It was 78%. Generally, the private lenders I work with are willing to go between 75 and 80. They prefer 75, but they don't mind going to 80, depending on the property. But all my lenders I've worked with now for 6 years, and so they're quite comfortable with me. Yes?
So when you buy property, the higher the cost, the higher percentage. For example, if you buy a $100,000 house, you might pay 65% of ARV minus repairs. If you buy a $400,000 house, would you go up to 75, maybe even 80%?
Well, I've bought houses in the lower, in the 130, 140,000 where I borrowed 75%, and it worked. But yeah, I have found that the higher the price of the property, higher the value of the property, depending on the spread, I have been able to get away with a higher loan to value. Okay, any other questions on, yes?
Alan, I had a question about the interest rates related to that transaction.
Yep.
Are there a lot of variations in terms of how you get an interest rate in a specific amount, like your relationship with the lender, how many properties, is that all that factor into it?
When I've worked with hard money lenders or quasi hard money lenders, they always start someplace between 14 and 20, and they have points. Okay, so your total rate that you could be paying with the points could be 18 to 20%. What I found with private lenders, they'll go between 9 to 10 and 12, but 0 points. I typically am in the 10% range. When the interest rates ticked up a little bit a year ago, they wanted 10.5. I was more than happy to pay 10.5. And it just came back down to 10 when interest rates went back down. I'm now paying 10 again with my private lenders. It's what they're willing to take. I know some private lenders, I personally don't use them because I've never been able to get access to their funds, but they only charge 8%, which would be even better. But you take what you can get. Good question.
Yeah, how will you identify those kind of lenders?
How do you identify them?
Yeah.
The lenders I go to the same church with, I've known for years. They found out I was getting into the real estate investment business, and they approached me. And once we did a couple of deals together, they got their parents to become lenders. Both of their parents were in a nursing home. They had their funds tied up in a savings account giving them 0.25%. They were delighted to get 10%. They told me that the money they lent to me over 4 years paid for almost a year's worth of their nursing home. So they were delighted. It works for everybody if it's done correctly. Any other questions? Yes?
What kind of time commitment are you making to this on an average week?
I spend between 50 and 60 hours a week doing this. This is all I do. This is my full-time job.
How has systematizing this enabled you to do more deals, or how many more deals if you had to estimate?
I would say I probably wouldn't do any more deals because there's a physical limitation in terms of trying to get around to manage all the rehab process. I don't do any of the work myself, other people do, but it's a trust but verify world. You trust the heck out of everybody because I've worked with all my contractors and people for a long time, but I still verify. I'm in every property every week for 2 reasons. Number one, I want to know myself. I want to see, feel, and touch to make sure the property is being rehabbed the way it's supposed to be, the work's being done at a high quality level. Number two is, before I take a draw on a property for the rehab, I send pictures to my lenders and say, here's the process, here's the progress that's being done in this house, so that they can look at me. None of my private lenders have ever been in a house that I've flipped, that they've lent me money on, never. They see the same information that I get, I send it to them, I send them the pictures, and we just go from there. So they trust me. But I do that for lots of reasons, but primarily for my lenders and primarily for myself. Anything else? Yes?
How many houses do you do in the course of a year?
I typically do 6 a year. Okay, anything else? All right, let me flip to a couple other things. If you don't manage your rehab process, you're going to get eaten alive. This lion walked within 5 feet of the vehicle we were in when we were in one of our tours in Africa. I'm not going to go through this particular chart, but I will spend a little bit of time on this one. This is a project tracking form for all my flips that I put together. I'm not going to go through everything on here, but what the form does, it has the property information, what the utilities are they turned on or turned off, because sometimes they're not always turned on. What's your lockbox code? It's amazing when you have 6 flips going on at the same time, they all have a different lockbox code. Sometimes you forget your code. This reminds you. Got the contractor's bid versus the actual, and your cash position with your lender. Rehab costs as they occur. It takes some time, but I can sleep at night because I know what's going on. So if you run your business like a business using proven management tools, you'll be the hyenas and the vultures. You won't be the carcass that they're going after. It's amazing how many real estate investors end up as that carcass. More than there are of the hyenas and the vultures. So you just have to manage it. It's a business. It's not fun and games. It's a business. So here's something I started doing a long time ago. I have 22 rental properties, and I have up to 6 flips going on at any one time. And what I found is, as I was going through, I was starting to lose track of what was getting paid to who and when it was getting paid. So even though everything's done electronically these days, it's amazing to me how often I get a call saying, hey, a payment was missed. Normally not because of me, but because of something that happened in, they were changing over their system, so their system was down. They didn't pull the mortgage when they were supposed to, and so forth. So all I did was I said, all right, here's my property. Here's the bank who's got the loan on the property. Here's when the monthly amount is. Here's when it's due. How's the money drawn? What account's it in? What's the account number? What's the start date of the mortgage? Then all I do is once a week, and this is printed out, sits on my desk. It's the first thing I see besides my computer every day when I go to my office. So once a week, I'll just go through and I'll say, all right, what's coming up this month? Do I have the cash in the correct account in order to cover all the draws that are going to be taken out of my account? Then all I do for November, I put an N beside the ones I've checked and verified that they're good. And I'll typically do that once a week, just to make sure that nothing's run amok as I go through my business. How many people in here are buy and hold investors? How many of you have somebody else manage your properties for you? Not so many. Most of you might manage them yourself, okay? For those of you who have somebody else manage your properties for you, just a couple of things that you should do. Almost every property management company, unless they're a mom and pop shop, has a software called AppFolio. I have no idea when it came into being, but it's a great tool. It's a great tool for them. It's a great tool for us as investors. There are 2 separate portals in there that you should have access to. One you're given as soon as you sign up with the company. That's the owner's portal. It has your monthly owner statement on it. They email it to you, plus they also put it in the portal. So you can go in there anytime and check it. The second one's the property management company data portal, which has all the data in for every property that you own. And you have to ask to get permission to access that. And most of the time they tell you that no, you can't have access to it. I say that's BS. If you're paying 6 to 10% to somebody to manage your properties, you need to have access to all that information. So here's what it looks like. Here's your owner statement. It's the same statement that they emailed to you. It's on the property management system. That's the AmpFolio system. And here's the other one, the dashboard. Again, you have to ask to get permission to use this thing. So what's in there? It's the lease data, list of your properties, the people, tenants, owners, and vendors. And this is the most important part of the accounting. The receivables and payables are in there. So you can go into that system, find out who's paid your rent. Did they pay all the rent? Are they paying utilities? And oh, by the way, how much money is flowing out of your account because of the maintenance and utilities and everything else that they're paying for you. So you can figure out what your cash flow is going to be in the month as you're going through the month. It also has maintenance, reports, messages, and what's new. So this is from my accounting receipts. I just did this a couple days ago. This is actually my tenants, how much rent they paid, when they paid it, what was the transaction accounting system number that they used to do that. I check this out once a week, religiously once a week, because I want to know what's going on with my business that I'm entrusting somebody else and I'm paying 6 to 10% for them to do for me. Which leads me to cash flow versus profit. How many people think cash flow is more important than profit? How many people think profit's more important than cash flow? If you're a lender, you want both of them. Neither one of them are more important than the other. You want them both. Cash flow is the money flowing in and out of your business, and although it seems that cash flow is only going one way out, it actually goes both ways. Think of cash flow as a picture of your business checking account over time. If you get positive, you got more money than you need. If it's negative, you better do a better job of managing your business, or you're going to have to find some more money. Profits, just the money the business pulls in after accounting for all expenses. It's the primary way the business earns money, and there's gross profit, operating profit, and net profit all in your income statement. So, I set my business up when I first started for cash flow. I've always been a cash flow person. I want to know day to day, month to month, week to week, what's going on in my business so I can plan what's happening next. If I need to have a private lender for money for a flip or for whatever I need it, I know well in advance that that's gonna be needed. So cash flow measures the daily health of your business, profit measures the long-term viability of business. If you're going to any lender looking for money, you better be doing well in both of these areas. But you can set your business up one way or the other, but however you like. And this is the last thing I'm going to cover. So is there any other questions at this point? And then I'll cover this last sheet, and I'll go through this quick. When I was buying 22 properties in 23 months, I literally walked through 50 properties every week for 6 straight months until I finally figured out, there's some not good things that happen when you do that much activity. But I was literally walking through 50 properties every week. And I did that for 6 months. And what I found was I accumulated one heck of a lot of data because I didn't use this particular deal analyzer form because I had a different one I was using at the time, but I was accumulating a ton of information. I thought, I ought to capture all this stuff somewhere so I could use it to my advantage. Why not do it? I've been in houses all over the place, from particularly Lancaster, York, and Harrisburg. So why not capture all that information? So I did. So I put the date, the street, the address, all that stuff, beds, baths, and so forth. But what happened after about a year, and I did this for 5 years. After about a year, if I saw a house that was for sale on the block, I already knew the ARV before I even looked at the house. They're all the same for the most part. You already know what the rehab's going to be. You already know what you can pay for it. You know what it's going to have the after repair value is going to be. So because I had spent all the time putting this together and then just keeping it up for 5 years, I had 2,500 properties in this database. So if somebody called me and said they had a property for sale and it was at XYZ house on Manor Street in Lancaster, I already knew what the after repair value was in the house. So if they were saying they wanted $30,000 for a $50,000 property and it was going to take 15 to rehab it, that wasn't a deal. So you either find a way to buy it cheaper or whatever, but that was a huge advantage to me while I was doing buy and hold properties. It didn't work so much for flips because they were in a much wider area that I hadn't really covered. But anyway, just one of the things. So if you manage your business well, real estate can be a lot of fun. As we're watching this mother lion and 4 cubs for about a half an hour one day. Any questions? I think I've worn them out or put them to sleep.
Well, I can't believe that.
It's up to you. Back to you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Alan, that was guys, if you didn't know, so I mean, I hope I'm not going to get myself in trouble here with this, Alan, but like, this is a thank you, and I hope you know what you got here, because so like, I'm a real estate investor. I steal everybody's form and kind of use what I want from it and go from there. And one day, I don't know, about a year and a half ago, I said, hey, Alan, I know because I've seen you use it in the past and I've seen you reference it. I've seen your like rehab cost estimator sheet. Would you mind giving me that, Alan? You and I have been friends. We've known each other for 10 years. And he said, yeah, Jude, I'll give it to you on one condition. I'm not giving it to everybody. You can't send it out to your club. This is just for Judah Hoover, my friend. I said, yeah, absolutely, Alan. He made this from 6 other ones, right? I have 6 other ones, and I just wanted to kind of compare and contrast some numbers that I had with what Alan was coming up with. And I knew he was a good flipper, and I wanted just to look at how he was laying some things out. I mean, he gave you that form here tonight. This right here is an extremely valuable form. Now, I can walk a property, again, I'm not bragging, I can walk a property and walk in and out in about 5 to 10 minutes and come up with a rough rehab number that'll be within 5 to 7%, close enough to make an offer on that property that will or won't get accepted, and if it's accepted, then I can go back and actually come up with a tight number. With this form right here, each and every one of you should be able to walk a rehab. Now, maybe it takes you half an hour or 45 minutes or even an hour, but the point is, this is a deadly form to be used. And I mean, obviously, retype it up and take his stuff off there, but that's a very, very powerful thing. The other thing, Alan, that I love that you did that I've never even thought of is I spent 15 years in the mortgage industry, hard money lender, commercial lender, residential lender. I can't tell you how many, one of just the value adds that I did was I would get people property insurance. I never thought of coming up with a form like that to just put all that together. And I just always kind of guessed every time I'd send some, an insurance. I'm like, well, they need the address. They need to know if it's a flat roof. They need to know the year built. Okay, that's good enough. I'll send that email. And sure enough, that always asked me 1 or 2 more questions. I don't know. You and I think things a little bit different. Your form that you used, I sent you a data analyzer 15 years ago. Is that the it looks like you took my form and expanded it. Is that what you did there?
Well, that form I use now is one that I got.
What?
Strictly from what I got. But I looked at everybody else to see how they match up.
I would love a copy of that. Sure. What you have there, my friend.
Send me an email.
Yeah,
Conversation didn't happen.
Outstanding. Well, listen, guys. Does anybody else have anything? I love the other thing that I think that I just really love that what Alan said that in my course material that I'm putting together for the top 10 things you need to do your first 30 days as a real estate investor is get on every real estate wholesaler's list that you can find. Let's have those wholesalers raise their hands again, because you absolutely need to be on their lists and talk to them. And what Leonard said is right. He kind of asked a leading question, but I do not care how much money you make on your deal if I'm making what I want to make on my deal. And if I'm not making what I want to make on my deal, it doesn't matter if you're breaking even, losing money, or not making what you want to make. You know what I mean? It's my numbers have got to be okay for me, and we go from there. So it is what it is. Now, if you are a wholesaler, try to leave enough meat on the bone for the next guy. Chad and Alan have a relationship together because the last deal that they did before they did this one, Chad had left enough meat on the bone for Alan to make a nice profit that he was willing to come back around. Does that make sense? Cool. Guys, listen, if I can ever help you in any way, that's what I'm here for. Does anybody have a deal to share, a question for the good of the order, or anything off topic or anything like that? I'm trying to do better at this part of things where I say, if you're a wholesaler, what do you have to share? If you're a service provider, what do you got? If you're somebody who's here and you have a question. Did Alan use any terms that anybody didn't understand? He was going through a whole bunch of stuff really super quick there and throwing out a whole bunch of stuff. Cool. Well, listen, next month on the 19th is going to be our Christmas party. It is going to be a networking event, and I hope to see everybody here. It is our always Christmas, never holiday Christmas party, and you are all welcome, and I look forward to it. And let's get ready for a huge 2020, everybody. Thanks very much. Yes?
Could you ask the wholesalers to stand along the back wall if they're interested in?
Yes.
Yeah, just in one spot.
Yep. Absolutely. I'll make sure you meet them. Absolutely. Good night, everybody. Thank you very much.
Tune in next time to the Central Pennsylvania Real Estate Investors Meetup podcast, keeping you up to date with what is happening in the York, Lancaster, and Harrisburg, Pennsylvania real estate markets.